Welcome everyone to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time. This is Masechet Bava, and today is our 21st lesson. We are going to be reviewing Daf 142 to 148. So we've been discussing a person who is going to be giving away their inheritance. Or giving away their estate. So today's Daf 142 discusses, can you give away your property to a fetus, to an unborn child? So the Gemara tells us that this does not work, right? You can't say, I'm giving everything away to this unborn child, but you could say, when it's born, then I want it to inherit me or to take possession of my estate, then it is valid. Or it still isn't valid because, again, the child isn't born at the moment. A convert who dies without any heirs. So then his property is what's called hefker. Anyone can take possession of his estate. But if you found out that the wife was pregnant, so then they need to return the estate for when she gives birth, then it goes to the child. Now, we just said that the fetus cannot inherit, but the Gemara says that if the wife actually miscarries, then people can then repossess the estate. And that shows that in the interim, right, when they gave it back and then they took possession, it shows that the fetus did inherit the father. So how could that be? We just said the fetus does not inherit. So we say, no, it's different when we're talking about inheritance. When we're talking about inheritance, so then it automatically goes to the fetus, and then when the child is born, to that child. But here we're discussing giving over a gift or giving over the inheritance, not in terms of a inheritance, but in terms of a gift. And in that case, the fetus does not inherit, does not acquire the gift. Okay, let's say you have a 1-day-old child. So that child can inherit and can bequeath, right? Meaning it can give over the inheritance to someone else. If it's less, right? Again, the fetus cannot, right? This shows that if it's less than a day old, meaning not born, it could not inherit. The Gemara says maybe not, that's not what we say. Maybe it can inherit from the mother and it can transfer the estate to the brothers from the father. But if he's the fetus, he can't do this, right? Again, the fetus doesn't have any power to transfer ownership to anybody else. A fetus also doesn't take away from the bechorah, the firstborn's, the birthright portion. Again, it's not the fetus isn't counted in the division of the estate. It has to be born first, right? So if there are 3 children and the mother is pregnant, when the father dies, you divide the estate into 3, not into 4. The fetus doesn't count because it has not been born yet. If the firstborn was born after the father dies, he does not get double. He does inherit the father, but he does not get double. So the Gemara tells us the halacha is, the law is, that the fetus does not acquire things, but it can inherit when it's your child. But it cannot acquire things when it's not your child. Let's say a husband says, all of my estate goes to our unborn children, and she isn't pregnant at the moment. He didn't say anything. It's not valid. Then again, this doesn't work. Let's say there's a child from another wife. So the question is, does the child from the other wife get the inheritance? Again, the father was trying to say, I want my inheritance to go to your line. Was he saying, I don't want it to go to everybody else? So one opinion is that because this woman doesn't have any children when he dies, so then the inheritance goes to the other child. Or another opinion is no. Again, we don't know who he wanted the inheritance to go to. Okay, Daf 143. Okay, if let's say someone says, I want you to acquire my estate like a donkey, right? A donkey cannot acquire an estate. Therefore, it's an invalid statement. If he says, I want you to acquire this, right? You and the donkey. So then the person gets half of the estate because it seems that he only wanted him to get half, or maybe it's a completely invalid statement, or maybe he gets everything because he didn't mean the donkey. Okay, let's say here the Gemara talks about a type of squash. One is bitter, and one is inferior, one is better. And we say that you can't use the bitter parts to separate truma, right? You again, the gift to the kohanim. You only want to use the sweet parts. So then, when you use this squash, so then you only want to work what is valid to work, meaning you only want the sweet part, not the bitter part. So the Gemara says it's the same thing as saying you and the donkey. You really only meant you. You didn't mean the donkey, and therefore you get everything. Or no, sorry. You really can separate something bad on something good, and it would be valid. And therefore, we don't know about this you and the donkey case. Okay, we've had this case before. Let's say a man, wanted to betroth. There are 5 women standing together, and he says, I want to betroth all of you. And 2 of them are sisters. And we know that you can't betroth 2 sisters. So, right, let's say one woman accepted the betrothal. So the sisters are not betrothed because, again, he only betrothed the people who he could marry. So the Gemara says maybe that's the same thing as you and the donkey, right? You get everything. The donkey doesn't get anything because that's not what you meant. Okay. Let's say someone says, right, my estate goes to my wife and my wife and all of your children. So then she gets half of the estate and the kids get half, right? Because he said you and your children. So they split the estate. Again, let's say there are 3 children. They don't divide it by 4. She gets half of the estate and the other half of the estate is divided by the 3 children. If that is the case, right, then wait, hold on one second. Okay. Okay. So then they divide it. They divide it the way we just said it. Then the Gemara gives stories where sages were allowed wives to collect 50% of the inheritance because of a statement like this. Then the Gemara talks about with taxes for the king, right? Rich people paid the taxes, and then the officers started helping to pay for the taxes. So each one gave half of the tax, right? But with the wife, it's not the same thing. So the question is, right, again, does she get 50% of the estate or not? Again, when you say, right, you and your children, did he mean to divide it, again, half and half? Or did he mean she gets a portion just like everyone else gets a portion? Right, let's say a father sends clothing home to the family, right? You give what's appropriate for the girls, you give it to them and the sons, Or if there's the daughters-in-law, so then you give it to the daughters-in-law. And it seems that the Gemara says you give to the daughters-in-law before you give to the married daughters, because the father wants to give to the daughters-in-law first. The Gemara talks about what if someone says banai, which means my children. Does it mean, right? What does it mean, banai? Right? It could mean sons and daughters, right? My children. Let's say the person only had one son and he said banai. So maybe banai can mean one son, and then you only give it to the son. Let's say someone says give it to my sons, and he only had one son and one grandson. So the question is, do we say that sons could mean son and grandson? The Gemara says yes, it could mean son and grandson, and you divide the estate between the two of them. Or no, banai means my son, and you only give it to the son. So here the Gemara talks about, like, would someone call their grandson their son? And that's like a machloket. Also, I'd like to say that we just had a grandson last week, and the Brit Milah was today. So mazal tov to my mother-in-law, who's also on this class. His name is Dvir Razel. So that is just something very beautiful. And since we're talking about grandchildren. Okay, next Mishnah. A father left older and younger sons. So we split the shevach, the gain, right? If the estate gains in value, you split that gain evenly. Or you can divide the estate at the beginning, and then whatever each person improves, that's what they get to keep. Okay, if a woman inherits the land, so then again, the improvement goes to everyone. If she wanted to split it, and the court, right, again, let's say it's the wife and the children, and let's say she said, I want to split the estate, and the court didn't for whatever reason, so then she gets to get all of the improvement, because if she's the one who did all the improvement, she gets to keep the improvement. So now the Gemara explains, again, if you used funds from the estate to improve the estate, so then they divide the improvement, the profit. But if each person used their own money, they get to keep the improvement that they, that they earned. Daf 144. If, again, it depends, right? If you only need to just wash the cistern and it improves, so then the shevach, the profit goes to everybody. So again, the question is, what type of profit are we talking about? If you put in effort, so you should be able to get the profit from the effort that you put in. Rav Safra improved his estate, and he wanted all of the profits. The brothers wanted a portion, right? And because he was a Torah scholar, he didn't need to make a statement that he wanted to divide the estate, and therefore he can keep whatever improvement he did to the property. As we said, right, a woman who inherited, again, it could be, here the Gemara says it's the daughter, it's not the wife. So usually women didn't do business, again, in the time of the Gemara. Therefore, if she does, she must state that she's doing it either for herself, right, and then she'll get the profits. And if she doesn't, then she has to share the profit with all the other heirs. They might think that, right, she's helping the orphans. And we say, again, no, she gets to keep any profits that she brought about. If a person marries off their older son, right, and it's his first wife, and they get married in a new house, the son acquires the house, right? There was an idea that the father would build a new house, they'd get married in the house, and then they would live there. So the assumption is the father doesn't need to say anything. The assumption is that as soon as they get married, the son acquires the house. If there are 2 floors, 2 levels to the house, he only gets the lower floor. If there's like a patio or like an inner and an outer house, we're not sure which one he gets to keep. And the Gemara says, Teku, we're not sure which one he gets to keep. Let's say he gives him a house, and utensils. So then he only gets to keep the utensils, not the house. Because if the father was using the house, it shows that the father wanted the house, and it's not a gift to the son. And here, the Gemara gives stories of sages who married off their sons, and they gave them the houses, and there are a few stories there. Okay, next Mishnah. Brothers who are partners, meaning they didn't divide the estate, and one of them was appointed as the tax collector. So that was a very lucrative job. So then all the profits go to all the brothers, meaning whatever that brother brings in gets divided up between all of the brothers. Also, the Mishnah tells us you can't use the estate money to pay your doctor's bills. You have to use your own money for that. If we say that the brother was appointed a tax collector because of the family, because of the honor of the family, so then the profits go to all the brothers. But if he's appointed because of himself, so then he gets to keep all of the profits that he earned. Let's say one brother took money to learn Torah or to go learn a profession. And they say, listen, if you live with us, so then we'll support you. But if not, then we're not going to support you. Or, right, maybe he gets a regular, right, he gets less than the normal stipend because he went off and he's not living with the other brothers. If he gets sick because of negligence, so then you can't use the estate money. But if not, then you actually can use the estate money for the doctor. And here the Gemara tells us that it's not good to go outside when it's cold, right? And then if you do go outside and you're not wearing a jacket, so then it's your fault that you got sick, and therefore that would be negligence. So just in terms of whose fault it is when you get sick. Okay, the next Mishnah is going to discuss the concept of Shushvinut. Shushvinut in modern Hebrew means like a groomsman, right, or a bridesmaid. But in the time of the Gemara, it wasn't just oh, I'm responsible for your party, or I'm going to be with you the day of the wedding. It actually had a legal responsibility that a person would bring, let's say, certain presents for the groom, but it would almost become like a loan in the sense that just like I brought you a gift, you are now obligated to reciprocate and bring me the gift. So we're going to see it's almost like an obligation. Once one person is the groomsman for the other person has a responsibility to pay them back. Okay, so let's say brothers were shushvinim, they were groomsmen while their father was alive, right? And now the brother, again, they were groomsmen for someone else. Now the brother is getting married. The Shushvin's present gets divided amongst the brothers, right? Because now his groomsman is going to bring a gift to the brother who is getting married. That's seen as part of the estate. And therefore it gets divided up between the brothers. Again, it's seen as a loan that was owed to the estate before the father died. But again, if someone just brings a regular gift, that's not divided, right? The brother doesn't have to divide all of his wedding gifts, but the Shushvin's gift does need to be divided because it is something that feels like a loan, and therefore it was owed to the estate, therefore it gets divided. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain. If the father got presents, and then right, the father got the presents, and then now he dies, so then the orphans have to send back gifts again because the father owed the gifts to the other person. So that is taken from the estate. Again, even though the father is no longer alive, he owes the other, right, the Shushvin, the groomsman, he owes him that gift. Or, right, if the father chose one son to send the gift to the person, so then when he reciprocates, that son has to send the gift. If not, then any brother can send it. Again, the gift has to come from the estate. Okay, let's say we're talking about a yavam, right? Remember from Yevamot, right? What's the case? Shimon takes Reuven's place, right? So again, Reuven died, Shimon married his wife. So now, does Shimon need to give a gift? Sorry. Does the Shushvin need to give a gift to Shimon? Remember again, let's say Reuven had his best friend, Moshe, and right, Reuven was the Shushvin for Moshe. Now, now again, right now, now Moshe, the question is now when Shimon marries the wife instead of Reuven, right? Does Shimon, right? Does the Shushvin have to give a gift to Shimon? Or no, right? Again, does the Yavam take his brother's place completely and anything that's owed to him comes to him? Or no, the Moshe, right, the groomsman, only needed to give a gift to Reuven. Reuven's not here anymore, so therefore he does not have to give it to Shimon. Okay, right, there's a machloket if the money of Kiddushin needs to be returned, right? Let's say a man betrothed a woman and then she died. So the question is, do you have to return the Kiddushin money, right? But what if he died, right? So there's a machloket if she dies, if she has to if sorry, if the family needs to return the money, but if he died, she gets to keep the Kiddushin money. Now, the Shushvin only, again, the groomsman only needs to give a gift to Reuven, right? Now that he died, maybe he doesn't have to give it to Shimon, as we said before. Or no, Shushvin celebrated with Reuven. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe the case is that the Shushvin, right, Reuven got married to his wife, Rachel, and they celebrated. And at the end of the week, Reuven dies. So now, right, again, the Shushvin was going to give his gift to Reuven. Reuven isn't here anymore. So the Shushvin still needs to pay. But at this point, now the Gemara says the money that he gives actually goes to all the brothers, not just to Shimon, who's going to marry Rachel, but to all the brothers. Let's say a man was engaged and then he died. So she gets the 200 zuz. And if the custom is to return the Kiddushin money, so then they return it. If not, then not. So it seems that it was based on the custom of the place that you were in. If she died, that's if she died. That's, sorry, 1 second. Sorry. I said the man was engaged and then died. But here, that's the case where she died. If he dies, then she does not need to return anything, right? She can say, look, I'm ready to get married. Bring me my husband, right? So I don't need to return anything. I'm ready to get married. So the Gemara says this is a machloket if she can say that, or no, everyone agrees she can say, I'm ready to get married. If he wants to show up, great. If not, I get to keep everything, right? I'm ready. Or again, sorry, 1 second. So basically, there's a machloket if the kiddushin is irretrievable or not, or if you can, return it. Okay, now we have the concept in the Gemara that's called sivlonot. Sivlonot were gifts that were given at the time of the engagement. So the question is, do you return these gifts or not? So here the Gemara says, right, that depends on the custom, but the Kedushin you don't return. The money of the Kedushin was never returned. Okay, the wife of the Kohen, who, okay, okay. This is, the Gemara is now talking about, do we return things? So a case where the wife of a Kohen was violated, and now she's forbidden to him, and he has to give her ketubah. The machloket is if she needs to return the kedushin money. So the Gemara says, because we're not sure, they actually split the money half and half. Okay, right. So, all right. The Gemara tells us that in Naharda, which is a big city in Bavel, they actually did return the Kedushin money. In the rest of Bavel, they did not return it. And therefore, if she retracts, let's say she doesn't want, let's say if she doesn't want to get married, right, the Kedushin is returned. Okay, let's go back to the Shushvinut, right, the being a groomsman. So the Gemara says there are 5 things about this. One, it's actually money that you can collect in court, right? That's how serious it's owed, right? So you can go to court to get it. You have to pay it in the right time. There's no interest. If you want, you could give more if you wanted. And Shemitah does not cancel, right? Again, even though we're calling this like a loan, it's not really a loan, and Shemitah doesn't cancel it. And the firstborn doesn't get double from what is owed, right? It's not seen as part of the estate yet. Again, like I said, it's a loan. You could give more if you wanted. You're not allowed to give less. Okay, if the Shushvin was in town, then he has to go to the wedding and he has to give the gift. And he needs to tell him, again, you have to tell him that he's getting married. If he didn't go to the wedding, so you can actually subtract some of the money from the gift. Again, because he didn't eat at your wedding. So then, right, again, if you're going to, like we know, right, if you go to a wedding, you have to give more of a gift than if you don't go to the wedding, right? Because you ate, right? It cost more to have you. So you have to give more if you actually go to the wedding. The gift can be dependent on the size of the wedding and, you know, who he married and if it's the first wife or the second wife. Here the Gemara goes into some not agadata, but speaking about looking at psukim and interpreting them in different ways. So they say that the master of agada is someone who's a wealthy man, right? A tov lev, right? Someone who has a good heart is someone who learns Mishnah. Someone who's a pauper is someone who learns Gemara, or maybe the opposite. Or the Gemara says tov lev means that you have a good wife, and a pauper means you have a bad wife, right? Because you're suffering. Okay, the next Mishnah on Daf 146. The Mishnah says that, okay, a person sent presents to the father-in-law, again, these sivlonot, you cannot collect it back, right? You can't say, I want it back, right? Let's say he came and he ate at the house, right? The Khatan came and ate at the house. So then he can't ask for the gifts back. If he didn't eat there, so then he could collect them back. If the gifts were given only for the marriage, so then let's say if the marriage is off, then the gifts have to be returned. Okay, so the Gemara explains again, he needed to eat the value of a dinar, which shows that he meant to be there. If it's less, then you can ask for it back. Let's say he sent many gifts and he drank some wine outside of the house. Is it seen as if he ate there or not? Right? And then let's say he died. Right? So anything perishable is not returned. Other things are returned, again, because they're not going to get married. Maybe you prorate the gifts based on the value of what he ate, right? Does he get the improvement of the gifts? The Gemara says, Teku, we are not sure. Presents that get worn out or used don't need to be returned, but if they still exist, again, then they do need to be returned, again, if the wedding is not happening. Let's say a person sent new wine and oil and clothing on Shavuot. This shows how great Eretz Yisrael is, right? That they had so many things on Shavuot. Let's say so the Gemara gives a story of a person's wife who couldn't smell, and this is seen as a blemish, and he didn't know about it. So because he didn't know about it, he could claim that it was a mekach ta'ut, right? That he got married and it was a, not that he was tricked, but it was someone give me some English words.
Deception.
Okay. No, not necessarily deception.
Unfortunate situation.
I think it was misled. Let's say misled. It's not necessarily deception, but he came under false pretenses. He didn't know the whole story.
Or undisclosed. Something was undisclosed.
Yes, undisclosed. I like that better. Right. So he wanted to prove that she tricked him. So he's like, oh, I smell this thing, and she was very smart. And she basically answered in a way that couldn't prove, right, if she could smell or not. And they had met in this ruin, and then the ruin fell on her and she dies. So the question is, does he inherit her? And the Gemara says they weren't married yet. They were just engaged. And therefore, he does not necessarily inherit her because they were not married yet. It seems to be an unfortunate story. Again, if she backs out of the wedding, she needs to return all the gifts that were given to her. Okay, moving on to a new topic. The Mishnah tells us the case of a shchiv meirah, right? Shchiv meirah means a person on their deathbed. When a person is on their deathbed, there's something very unique about this person in the sense that anything they say, we listen to. Meaning, you don't have to do any sort of kinyan, any sort of acquisition. If they tell you to give this money to so-and-so, you just give the money to so-and-so. So we also, okay, so now the Mishnah tells us, a shchiv meirah gave away most of his estate and retained a little bit for himself. And then he recovered. So the gift is still valid because he retained some of it for himself, right? If you give away your entire estate, it shows that the only reason you're giving it away is because you think you're going to die. But if you say, I want to give you, right, the house in the Hamptons, but I'm keeping this house here for myself, it means I really just want to give you the house in the Hamptons, right? So because he left something for himself, the gift is valid, even though right? Again, a regular gift needs to have a kinyan, you need to do something, but this is seen as a gift, and it is valid. If he gave away everything, then when he recovers, he gets everything back because he didn't really mean to give it away because he thought he was going to die. Okay, so the Gemara tells us the concept of umdina. Umdina means we assess what the person is thinking, right? Therefore, sometimes the gift is valid and sometimes the gift isn't valid, right? Therefore, if he thought he was dying and he gives everything away, right? When you think you're dying, you give away everything because you don't need anything else, right? Now, when you recover, obviously, you don't want to give everything away right now because you're still alive. Therefore, you get everything back. If it's obvious why he was giving it away, so then it's different. Daf 147, if he gave away the estate, again, because he thought he didn't have a son, and then it turns out he does have a son, so then the estate goes to the son. Again, you have to think about it in a obvious way. Obviously, he would want to give it to a son. He just didn't know that he had one. Okay. Then the Gemara tells us that the gift of a shchiv meira is deoraita. It's from the Torah, either from the word vehe'evartem, right? You transfer, right? Just like you transfer a regular inheritance, there's another type of transfer that will go almost automatically, and that is the gift of a shchiv meira, the gift of a person on their deathbed. Or we learn it from the word vinetatem, right? You should give it. Another opinion is that the transfer is only is that, right, again, the word ve'avartem, transfer, is only when you give your estate to a daughter, and it's not what it means. Maybe we learn it from Chizkiyahu, the king, when he was dying. He just says something and they listen to him, right? So that is an example of a gift of a shchiv meira. Or we learn it from Achitophel. Achitophel was King David's advisor, but then he actually goes with his son who rebels against David, but then he realizes he chose the wrong side, and then when he dies, he actually instructs his whole household to do different things, right? He says, don't fight against yourself, don't rebel against David, right? So he talks about, so the Gemara talks about Achitophel on his deathbed, and that's another example of a gift of a person who's on their deathbed. One thing that he also mentions is that you should, when to plant the grain based on is it raining at a certain time? And because of that, the Gemara goes on to a whole discussion about rain. When do we know it's going to be a rainy year? When do we know it's going to be a year of drought? Based on when the winds, during Sukkot, the last day of Sukkot, are the winds coming from the east or the west or the north and the south? Okay, back to shchiv meira. Another opinion is that it is not deoraita, it's not biblical, rather it's derabanan, right? It's only rabbinic, because, right, the rabbis were concerned that people would be anguished and it would cause them to die earlier if they would have to do more things, and therefore the sages said that they can do this type of acquisition. An heir can't change the gift that his father gave away on his deathbed, right? Again, this proves that it's deoraita, right? Meaning whatever the father says on his deathbed goes, and you don't have the right to change it afterwards. Let's say the person says, the father says, Reuven can live in this house, or he can eat this produce. That's not a valid gift. He has to say, give the house to Reuven, not he can live here, right? He has to say, give the tree to Reuven. Okay, Daf 148. If if the Shchiv Meira gave away the tree to one person, but the fruit to another, is it seen that he kept a portion to himself, right? Because he was able to give away the rights to the fruit. If that's the case, he must have left a portion of, right, a portion of the tree to himself. Is that seen as leaving over a part of the tree himself? And therefore, if he recovers, the gift is still valid or not, right? He gave away the tree and he gave away the produce. Nothing is left for him. So that's it. What if he left the fruit to himself? Right? If he left the fruit to himself, now the fruit is metaltalin, it's movable object, but the place of the tree, right, the branch where the fruit comes off, if that is owned by the person, so now he owns part of the tree. A tree is planted in the ground, it's seen as land, and therefore, if he left a part of the tree for himself, so then if he recovers, his gifts are valid, his other gifts are valid, but it doesn't necessarily prove if he gave it away to someone else. If a person sold a house and said that he's retaining the rights to the roof, now this he would have retained anyway. Therefore, when he said it, it must mean that he wanted something else. And what he wanted was the right to the airspace over the courtyard. So he can have that right. If he was giving the rights to the roof to someone else, does he also give the rights to the airspace as well? So the Gemara says yes. Okay, if the Shchiv Meira gave away everything, we said if he recovers, it all has to come back to him. Now, if he changed his mind in the middle of when he was giving away things, and the Gemara explains that there are two ways to understand this, but one of the way we're going to understand it is that he paused in between each time he gave something away. So when he paused, did it mean that he wasn't sure he should continue giving things away, right? And therefore, when he gets better, he can only take back the last gift, because all the other gifts, it seems that he wanted to actually give them away. Right? The first gifts were really gifts. The last one was the matnat shchiv meira, I guess, right? If the person feels that they're going to die, they'll say, oh, okay, fine, I'll give away that as well. Or maybe they paused because they were thinking. So the Gemara says, no, interesting, again, like the psychology, the Gemara says that a person on their deathbed, they contemplate and they think beforehand, and when they speak, they just tell you, give this to this and this to that, and there's no thinking at that moment. When the person thinks that they're going to die, they know exactly who they want to give what to, says the Gemara. The Gemara says, well, maybe he gave away everything here, but maybe the person has property in a different place. Therefore, maybe his gift is real when he recovers. So the Gemara says, well, if we know he doesn't have anything else, so then they are returned. If the Shchiv Meira changes his mind, right? So let's do another way to change his mind. Let's say he said, give my whole estate to Reuven. And then he's like, you know what? Give 40% to Shimon. So now, did he, sorry, when he said give 40 to Shimon, is it that he retracted the 100% gift from Reuven, and now, right, he's giving some to Reuven and some to Shimon, right? Or is it a partial gift, right? So that's the question. If he recovers, so then, again, Reuven was supposed to get 100, and then he changed it and said Shimon gets 40%. So now let's say he recovers. So Shimon gets the 40%. Reuven doesn't get anything. Because remember, Reuven was going to get 100%. 100% means a matana shchiv mira, right? A gift from someone who is on his deathbed. If he recovers, he didn't die, so you don't get anything. But when he says 40%, when he says 40%, so then it's giving a gift. So then even if he recovers, he gets the gift. Let's say it's the opposite, right? Let's say he originally said, give some of my estate to Reuven. And then he changes his mind and he says, you know what? Never mind. Give it all to Shimon. So now he gets better. So Reuven actually gets the money, right? Because again, partial gift gets the money. Shimon doesn't get, right? And this shows that when you change the gift, it's as if you retracted the whole gift. And therefore, only one of them gets the money and not both of them. Then the Gemara asks a lot of questions which it's not going to answer, right? But let's say what happens if on his deathbed he sanctifies his whole estate and now he recovered, right? Did he mean to sanctify and it stays sanctified, or he meant to do it only after he dies so he gets to use it when he gets better, right? Let's say he said, it's, I'm not giving it to anybody, whoever, right? First come, first serve to my estate. Again, now he gets better. Did he mean first come, first serve, or did he mean only if I die, right? Let's say he said, give my estate to the poor. Again, right now he gets better. Does he get his estate back, or does it go to the poor? And the Gemara ends with Tiku, and then the Gemara ends off with what are the different languages that one can use to make a gift, right? You can say, take this, I want you to possess it, I want you to acquire it. What's not clear is if you say you can benefit from this, right? Is that seen as a gift, or does it mean you can borrow it? And the Gemara ends with Tiku. So with that, we finish this week's lesson. I made it through. I didn't cough too much. So wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. Be'ezrat Hashem, we will meet next week. We have a few more minutes, so if anybody has any questions or comments, Simcha.
Thank you. Mazel tov and simon tov and simon. Okay. Now, the next thing is, I'm really hung up on about the fourth thing you said, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. A child of 1 day can inherit, a boy of 8 gets a bris, and a child of 30, unless he lives past 30 days, he can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. I don't understand. Just help me. Don't come up with some fantastic.
I'm not. First of all, nowadays that's not so true. Meaning nowadays we do bury a child under 30 days in a Jewish cemetery.
And he has a name and everything. Has a name?
I don't think
know.
that there's like a headstone.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not. Baruch Hashem. I don't have it. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right.
Zohar, do you know? I don't know.
Yeah, all right.
No,
and are you saying bet with a bet or write it, or de with a dalet? I don't.
Which
I
one?
both.
Which one?
When you say, I always say bit or write it in the Torah. You're saying de write it.
De oraita. De oraita.
the D.
It's Aramaic. It means of the Torah. De oraita or de rabbanan, of the rabbis or from the rabbis.
Thank you.
To answer your question, as a matter of fact, I sort of have experience with this because I had an older sibling who died after 7 days, and I think they did a bris and then had buried him, but I don't know where.
I think that's what they usually do. They bury, but they don't really tell the parents where the grave is. I'm not sure exactly why. I can look that up actually. I don't know.
Yeah, because I was told. I mean, then again, take this with a pinch of salt. This is what my mother's told me, and I can't ask anymore. So, that she said that they did the bris and then buried him because he was 7 days old or 8 days, whatever. So I don't know if that's exactly what they did or not.
8 days.
That's the story that she told me. But at any rate, I don't know where, and I don't know.
Zohar.
Doesn't the do I remember correctly? The baby girl gets her name after 30 days.
Mm.
No?
First
No,
time they go to the
no.
Torah.
A girl gets the name as soon as, the parents want to give her a name.
I know they get invited to go to the bima, etc. A different time for the girl. Well, there's also the discussion of the Levitical boys being counted only after 30 days or what. Somehow there's so many different things that have to do with 30 days and the baby. So I'm sure that you'll find something for us.
No, there's definitely an idea that look, in the time of the Mishnah and the Gemara, a child who, again, without modern medicine, right, a child who didn't survive past 30 days was seen as if the child wasn't viable from the beginning. That's the understanding. The understanding was, either the child was born with complications or too early. That's why we do a pidyon haben at 30 days. The concept is that a healthy child, right, will make it to day 30. And if the child is not viable, it won't make it to day 30. That's the concept. Again, halachically, it doesn't have so many implications nowadays. Again, for naming, they name babies right away. Even, babies who are, let's say, preemies, boys who can't have their brit milah yet, they will give a name so that people can daven for them. So there, nowadays with modern medicine, things are I think very different, and the way we understand babies and birth is very different. So I think that's the idea, but I don't know halachically what the ramifications are.
Okay, don't ask me where I got it, but I have heard that they were trying to make it easier on the woman and the family by not prolonging. That's why they just, go on with life. But I don't know where I got it.
It could be, again, in the I think the mindset behind this is that if the baby couldn't make it to 30 days, the baby wasn't going to make it. So like, don't get so attached.
Yes,
I think that was the idea.
Yeah.
Don't get so attached. It wasn't a vibe. And I think maybe, now I'm making something up, but maybe the idea of not having a proper again, the child is buried properly, but maybe not having a tombstone and making it official is saying, like, this child wasn't really a child, right? It was, again, I think it's hard to say, but I think that's the idea. It didn't have a chance. I think that's the idea. I think, for the family, that's a very challenging, very challenging sentiment. And, especially if they name the child, it's, again, I'm not saying it's something easy, but I think that's the tension in the halacha.
But from my experience with girls, most often they, especially in religious circles, obviously, we're talking about the first Monday or Thursday, whatever is, or Shabbos, whatever comes up first. They, when the father has an aliyah, then he gives the name at that point. The unusual thing was that my first granddaughter, it was money until they gave her a name because they couldn't decide a name. But that was so unusual. Everybody was saying, like, what? She doesn't have a name yet? She doesn't have a name?
That's what they did to me. It took me a week. Oh my gosh, I couldn't do it.
Wow.
So this was like a month, and they just couldn't decide it. So,
Wow.
it's very
Wow.
strange.
All right.
Thank you, Rama.
Wishing everyone a Shavua Tov.
Shavua
Thank you very
Tov.
much, and feel better.
Bye-bye.
Get well soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank
She
you.
will. It was a rhinovirus. She'll fight it off. She's strong. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
She'll
Feel
take
better?
medicine and it'll go away in a week, or she won't take anything and it'll go away in 7 days.